that's where I wanted to start, because this is your welcome back to the podcast. This is your second time. This is the first time where I think we're both sober doing the podcast together. We were 2018 at the Italian Open. We had Eddie Pepperell. And now here you are, you're coming off your first WGC. And I did want to start out there. I think it's fitting. I have a tweet that Eddie sent yesterday, and I'm only the messenger here, but he said, I just want to say congrats to my good friend, Laurie Canter, who went all the way to Florida this week to putt like a clown and earn 40,000 pounds. That's my kind of guy right there. So it's good. You still have friends to keep you grounded, even in the face of all this recent success. But outside of the putting, that's what I wanted to ask you. You're able to kind of, and I guess outside of the golf course too, you're able to size up the competition. What do you feel like distinguishes that next tier of professional player from, the next tier, I guess?
I'd still have to think about that question to give you like a proper answer, I think. But
we can just go quiet, radio silence, like pregnant pause for 3 or 4 minutes. That's fine, and then we can edit that out.
This is your chance. Like, we're going to force reflection here on you, so this will be part of your reflection process.
Well, from what I saw last week, the difference is big. It's big, and it's you alluded to. I drove the ball well in Europe. That gives you a big advantage on any golf course, right? We all know that. But last week, and that's all I have. My data of playing in America was that golf course with that field. But I thought someone getting around there in 18 under across 4 days was frankly amazing. And then there was 3 guys at 15 under, weren't there? So, and I realised, I've chatted to a few of the guys, a lot of them say, when you're playing that style of course week in, week out, of course you get little hacks here and there. But yeah, truthfully, being honest, it was a bit of to see that score. And granted, I didn't play well. I can say obviously didn't have my best week, certainly with my irons around the green and on the green. But still, I was massively impressed with the level of scoring.
Yeah, sample size being as small as it is, how difficult was it, or would you say it was, to acclimate to the green surface? Because you don't see Bermuda grass all that frequently, particularly at this point in your season, right? And then additionally and for anyone listening to this or anyone that hasn't been to concession, they don't understand the severity of the slopes out there around the greens. So not only Bermuda grass is a putting surface, but Bermuda grass is a chipping surface to, number one, chip off, and number two, to try and land it short of the green. Case in point, pretty much any one of the greenside shots or complexes, but most importantly, I guess most poignantly, was hole number 4. If you get left of the green, that par 5 out there, or is that hole number 3? Yeah, hole number 3, the par 5. Yeah. Left of the green, trying to bank it into that slope. We saw almost everyone make a mess of it. That was the common occurrence, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it's, obviously, I've done a bit with yourself at Trinity, and that's a type of Bermuda, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's always your grass and Bermuda out here. Yeah.
Right. But it's I guess it's the firmness how firm it is, how precise you have to strike the ball, because especially that shot on 3, you've got to elevate it, I don't know, maybe like 15, 18 feet, and then kind of strike it well enough that it's even going to stay on the green the other side, unless you kind of really jib out and use one of the slopes on the left or on the back. So again, that's just not a shot that you'd face a whole lot of. And it's, I guess, and truthfully, I can't see, you're not, if you're hitting it consistently in that sort of spot, you're not really going to contend for tournaments anyway. So it's like, you need to know how to play that shot, but equally know not to hit it there much. If that makes sense. So,
And particularly in that situation on that hole, that's why you saw so many guys trying to squeeze it down the right side and bounce off the cart path into the stuff on the right. You mentioned a word, jibbing out. Would you call out Colin Morikawa for jibbing out when he was going hybrid off the back of the greens on, what was it, 11 the par 3, and then 12 just short of the green, chipping it up yesterday. Hybrid bump and run just to avoid any disaster.
Just a nifty little play, wasn't it? I think probably all these guys, they'll, I guess when you've played a number of rounds, you're going to figure out a formula, a shot, 2 or 3 shots you feel comfortable with. But it just felt, if I was going to kind of summarize the difference, it's just the variety of shots you need are so much more vast than in Europe. And I don't want to blanketly say Europe, because you still need, being a European player, you're going to get loads more different grasses and huge variety, but you probably really only need a couple of shots. Whereas I felt there was just an infinite amount of shots you could play around the green, use the complexes in any sort of way to get the ball near the hole. And so that's something I think it asks you more questions, definitely.
Right.
Well, we've spent the first part of our chat here talking about like the one event that you haven't played well in the last 8 months or so. Your play over really since the restart in Europe has been unreal. We've loved watching it. You've got in the 17 starts, you've got 5 top 10s and 9 of those or 9 of those events top 20s. So consistently in contention, and we've loved seeing it. We've enjoyed watching seemingly every week. Get to wake up in the morning and see you're at least in the mix. So as happy as we are to see it, we're also curious. And I know that I probably won't be the first person that's asked you this, but I want to start the conversation here. What did you do over lockdown? What was that process like that you feel like would attribute to what is a pretty steep increase in performance?
Well, thank you. Lockdown really was a chance to do a bit of this, like what we're doing, reflect, think about what I was doing in golf, and how potentially I could do things a bit better. So, just a performance psychologist guy I was working with, Carl Morris, he asked me that question. That was how it started. So, I was just, a few things were recurring for me. I felt like it was a bit cyclical because I felt I've had brilliant advice from world-class coaches for a while, and I feel like at points I was getting somewhere. 2017, I felt like I was getting somewhere with golf, but I'd get in a cycle, and then I'd look to perhaps ask other people to get me out of it. So I'd end up with a pretty hefty information stream that was all good, relevant information, but no real way of using it in a kind of coherent way and making it my own. And so that was the crux of what I tried to do. I just said, I'm going to really think about what I think helps me play well. And the couple of things that I've really changed in terms of what I've done with golf is I probably have spent, I reckon I spend 90% of the time in golf on a golf course now, not on a range or even on a putting green or chipping green. I'm trying to spend my whole time on the golf course and practice there, use it as a training ground a bit more, whether that's trying to get competitive gains, there's a few different drills I like doing out there that are a bit fun and can just keep you engaged. So that's basically, I would say it. It sounds really uncomplicated, but I think maybe that's why I like it.
You mentioned 90% of your time on a golf course now, and then you followed that with a bit more. What was the previous ratio? Like if you look back at 2015, 2016, or 2018 when things went awry, what was the ratio then? Did it flip significantly, or was it in reality just a bit more?
Well, I think I've always looked for technical improvement, and so I would say it'd be hard for me to say it was that percentage, but I suspect I just was wasting so much time, especially at an event. It's incredible. I look at it now and I think, what was I doing? preparing for a golf event on a Thursday, because I'd be on the range, and I'd spend 2 or 3 hours on a range on a Tuesday when my ball striking was perfectly good, and I didn't put adequate time into the areas that would have actually had a performance benefit at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And truthfully, the time where I really felt like I did that well, and I'm not just saying that, it was 2017 when you were involved with me. It was something that you were very hot on, but it's until I've just figured out for me, unless I'm on a golf course engaged learning about the golf course, that challenge on that week, I find myself, I just very easily get led astray from what's effectively important. And so it's just, for me, it's just something I have to constantly flag, and, have my caddy and have Carl who, and that's something that they're on me the whole time. I go and learn the golf course, and, figure that out basically much more in terms of a proportion of your time.
It sounds like, if I'm interpreting that answer correctly, it sounds like you've really taken some ownership over what you're doing from a technical perspective. So one, as I hear that answer, I'm interested in how your process or involvement with a technical coach has evolved over this period. And then I'm really curious to hear you speak to it sounds like you're decluttered a little bit, because if you're spending a lot of time on the golf course and less time on the range working on technical pieces, then your mindset when you're on the golf course, the things that are going over your head over a shot in a tournament must be different. If leading up to that time, it wasn't just a lot of technical thoughts and a lot of form focus, you must be freed up to play slightly differently. And that's a little conjecture on my part. I want to hear if that's the case, and if that's something that you've kind of taken away from this period as being part of the formula to maintain this level of play.
Yeah, so the work I've done with a technical coach has been really with Alan Thompson, who helped me a few years ago. But he sort of jokes he's tried to retire about 5 times. So I don't think he's kept things like pretty simple, and but it's not been. I kind of have deliberately not seen him much at events, if at all, really. Just tried to perhaps see him in an off week, think about it myself. Obviously, I'm not here saying that I don't still work on my technique. Like, of course you do. Like, unfortunately, this game, like, you have to. And at points it's going to go off for no real reason, and that's like, there's a huge benefit to having a set of eyes who can put you on a good path, because we know how easily you can get off it. But I think it's perhaps that, coming back to your first question, it's more a preparation, from a preparation standpoint, about how I'm choosing to see in myself as a golfer is I want to be a golfer. I don't want to spend a lot of time practicing the component parts of golf and not really being able to play the game very well. And I know that sounds crazy, like to say, but when I was thinking about it myself, I thought this is kind of where I'm at here. Is I can make my swing look a certain way and look pretty and do this, but actually it's not. This isn't doing me any good, and I've been cyclical for a little while. And I know I've had coaches probably try and push me on this path anyway, but it's something. I think at the moment I'm looking at it fairly black and white, and I need to spend almost all my time out there on the golf course.
Immediately coming out of lockdown, did you have a sense that you were going to do something that was special? If not, when did that kind of fully form in your head that you could, you are a different person and you could be doing something different, special, playing the best golf of your life? And then as a second part to that, I want you to speak to the confidence piece, when the confidence started to kick back in, when you realize, whoo, I am doing something that's different than I've formerly done, that's better than I've formerly done any time previous to this, and how you feel standing over it now or approaching a golf tournament.
So I didn't have a sense that anything special was going to happen. I think when after lockdown, I remember the first couple of tournaments, I was really quite edgy because I was trying a few new things in terms of, obviously, like I've said, the preparation. And I think you naturally, as soon as you're feeling a bit edgy, you want to revert to something that feels comfortable. So, you know, I didn't really, but then we were able to play the first 3 or 4 events, and I got my first of the top 10, which I was really proud of. And then, you know, I think perhaps that was a chance for me to say, okay, this does feel different. And actually, I felt like had a lot more energy. You know, I had more energy on a Saturday. Sunday, I was kind of just in a better headspace overall. Really, like, knew the golf course, you know, well, because I'd played, I think, my first 3 events in the UK swing. I played 45 holes in preparation. I mean, I would never have done that before. I might have played 18 or 27, so it was just like tough on my caddy, but great for kind of knowing the golf course and really getting my head in that place. And yeah, from a confidence perspective, I think probably maybe after Italy, I started to feel
shooting 60 will do that.
Yeah, right. It's funny how that
Gaining
works.
9 strokes on the field will do that.
Yeah, it was. But I think I had a good little run at tournaments, but I was quite quick to think, well, let's so do that or so do that. But I do feel like I've slightly changed my operating system. So although the results are great, the actual confidence I got was that this doesn't necessarily feel like I'm in a good run of form. It just feels like I'm operating a bit more, just more efficiently. So then all of a sudden, I think you can get yourself wrapped up in stories pretty quickly, can't you? With your own form, when's it going to end, all that kind of stuff. But I kind of got comfortable with thinking, actually, like I've changed how I'm operating week to week, and so I know I'm not going to finish top 20 every week. No way. But I've got a better chance of doing that. You know, as I sit here now, well, that's certainly how I feel.
Yeah. Speak to how that change in the operating system has raised the floor. So there's one thing of, all right, let's raise your ceiling. And that's usually what we're after. We're after that optimizing and saying, let's make sure that your best golf is better. But it's a totally different thing to say, let's just raise the floor. And it sounds a little bit like, as I'm listening to that, that's what you've done. So are there things that you can point to that said, now my bad rounds or my bad holes are not as penal as they were? And then because I've raised my floor, now I have this consistency to where we are on Sunday mornings. I'm always seeing Laurie's name somewhere in the mix, seemingly in the last few months. So can you speak to the difference a little bit to raising the floor, making the B- or the C+ weeks into, positives?
So I still think my bad golf's really, really bad. I know it is.
Recency effect there. That's just recency, Laurie.
Yeah, right.
That's concession getting to you. They leave it there. Leave it in Tampa or Naples or Bradenton. Sorry.
It's not. I mean, I played about as bad as I've ever played at the Scottish Open, and then 2 weeks later I shot 60. I still think it's almost maybe knowing that. And Carl talks about something interesting. He says, in a 72-hole event, you'll be lucky if you kind of really play good golf for more than maybe a round and a half. So it's almost like you need to get, when you are having those moments of struggle, or really you might be struggling with ball control or chipping or putting or whatever it might be. I actually think there's a lot to be said for just embracing that, having a level of acceptance within that, saying, do you know what, I am like really struggling, but I'm just going to hang in for 9 holes and see what happens. Hang in for today, see what happens. And that sounds really, really obvious, and it sounds easy to do. But I think when you do that and kind of go through that struggling period and then come out the other side and finish the week and have a really good week, then you feel like that was really worth sticking with that. And it's, I think pros have a lot of different ways of expressing that. I've heard about Justin Rose when he talks about waiting for his run. And I think that's basically the art of golf, isn't it? I think you're dealing with a lot of things. You might have a hang up about your technical game or about your putting, and it's just effectively making sure that scar never gets too big, and accepting where you are at that point, and just sort of going with it, embracing it as well as you can. Because when you do come out the other side, I think that's, potentially finishing a 4-round event with a really good place in, or who knows, winning an event. I mean, I think that's where you'd really gain a lot of confidence.
Yeah. Can you speak to that experience now that you have some of those instances as recently at the end of last season? You're in a position to win the final event of the year with a couple of holes to play. Did you play it forward in your mind? Did you get future thinking, or were you able to compartmentalize and execute as the new Laurie Canter, taking that one step at a time and being patient? Can you speak to that different experience of seeing yourself in contention now?
What, specifically at the DP World Tournament?
Mm-hmm. Or even back in Italy.
Okay, in terms of just how I felt when I was in contention, or
for any mere mortal, we're gonna crap our pants, right? Now, I'm not saying that you guys or girls out there playing on the world stage don't experience similar feelings, but eventually immediately you grow some sort of mindset or some sort of strategy, some sort of set of skills that allow you to overcome that. Whether that overcoming means that you're triumphant and finish first, or whether that overcome it means that you don't totally crap the bed and shoot yourself out of it in the final round when you're starting the final round in contention. And that's a lot of the conversations that we'll have with the aspiring players, the player that you were back in 2013, 2014 as a new professional, right?
I think overcoming that's one of the hardest things that I think you can do. I know I've really struggled with it. I think for my first couple of years on tour, I used to find Thursdays okay, but I was looking back now, I was just putting an enormous amount of energy into Thursday, relatively speaking. And then I found it quite easy to press the eject button on a Friday or a Saturday. And because I think you do just make it into a bigger deal than it actually is. Right. But because, and I think it's, if you're going to overcome something, you need to face into it. And, I've played and practiced and dreamt about winning on tour. So, there is no point in me saying, "Oh, I'm not nervous, I feel okay." I've always been all right with saying, "I'm nervous, I'm okay." That is okay to feel like that. I'm not surprised. It'd be worse if you didn't, probably. So from my experience, facing into that and saying, "Okay, I'm nervous here, but nerves are a type of energy. So can I use that positively for the rest of this week? And then potentially, most importantly, can I make sure I've got something left come Saturday or Sunday?" Because the amount of emotional energy I think that it takes, I'm not the best guy to ask this, I'm not a serial winner, but I'm gonna guess if you ask guys who've won loads and loads of tournaments, it takes a huge amount of emotional energy, because you have to potentially sleep with the lead, on the lead, answer the same sort of questions a lot, and that's just kind of off the golf course, and then on it. Depends if you're a leaderboard watcher, all those kind of things that play into that. But the way I feel like I've become, and I haven't overcome this, but I'm happier in myself with it, is I've just accepted that this is something I want, and this is something, this is effectively where I want to be, and I am nervous about it, but that's okay.
You talk as if you're not an expert on this because you haven't had that first win, but I don't think there's any more pressure-filled situation than Q school, and you have this insane record. You're 3 for 3, right?
3 for 3 and 4 out of 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I think that as a young professional listening to this, they would probably like us just to talk about this with you the entire time, because there's all these different pressure-filled situations. In just the last couple minutes, we've talked about being in contention on Sunday, but also then there's that I want to make the cut on Friday, and then there's a Q school. There's all these different situations that we can frame in different types of ways. But as players, as coaches, it's helpful if we can figure out, well, what about this situation did I approach it to where I can use this in that variety of those pressure-filled situations? So you've cracked the code a bit on Q School, which is where you're playing for your job. You're playing for a place to play for a year. There's real consequence to that event that lasts far more than if I come up short on a Sunday. I get another chance the next week. So are there any, and maybe you answered it, but I want to dig into it because it's such a unique skill that you've exhibited in mastering this really strange arena in golf. Are there any strategies that you can point to, or any kind of reframing that you've done that served you well in that really strange pressure-filled situation of Q School that then you're looking to apply to being in contention on Sunday, those different situations?
Sorry, I feel like I start every answer with It's just really good questions.
We'll edit that out.
So I do think they're fundamentally different, trying to win on tour and getting a Q School card. They shouldn't be. I know the popular answer, or I know some people would say it's all golf, it's all just golf. But I always thought Q School, I never really understood why people got so wrapped up in it, because for me it was just a phenomenal opportunity. Even losing a card and going back, I was like, in 6 days you could have a tour card. It's Bernard, it's an amazing opportunity in that respect. So that was kind of, from a framing perspective, that's how I've always tried to go into that week. I think. Was that the second part of that question was skills?
Well,
I feel
I would love, or if there's strategies, so again, because if I'm listening to someone that has had success in a situation where I desperately want success, I'm hoping that there's some strategies. I'm hoping that there's some tangible things that I can say, okay, this is what Laurie did. This is what helped him. So I'm going to try this out. And maybe there aren't. Maybe it's just, you're just the Q School prodigy. I'm not sure.
Well, Q School week, I can tell you my formula, and you could decide if you think there's anything in it. But it's been to frame it as an opportunity, and then I'm a complete recluse for the week. I don't stay with anyone, speak to anyone. I internalize a lot of stuff. Usually have a friend as a caddy, and basically feel like once we're off the golf course, we go back to our barracks. No one gets in our head for the week. That's what I've done. Because I think it's just it's a place where it's not a hugely inspiring setup, shall we say, at Q School. It's a big clubhouse. There's a lot of players. There's a lot of noise. There's a big kind of truck with a leaderboard. It's a bit bonkers. So I think get in, get out. That's me.
Okay. Well,
have you tried that in a regular event?
Well, yeah, the European Tour bubble. That's what you've been doing.
Yes, exactly. So this is probably
the Canter formula.
I apologize for our looser restrictions in Tampa this weekend. You just didn't know what to do.
Well, I wish it was that easy, but it potentially for me feeds into. My perception is you need an enormous amount of energy to contend in a tournament. Leave some back. Don't burn yourself out talking rubbish about golf all evening, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying you need to be a recluse and stay in a tent, but for me, certainly, shutting myself away, not really letting too many people in my head, is is probably a pretty good formula around a golf tournament. Yeah.
So sometimes letting ourselves in our head is not letting ourselves in our own head is also a very good formula, isn't it? So you mentioned a phrase, feeding into, and I want to ask the question, feeding into ... What did you feed yourself the morning you showed up and floated with 59? Italy.
Italy. That was a kind of strange week. I'd had like a little bit of a back issue, so I'd had a couple of weeks off before, I think, and I like genuinely nearly didn't go. Then I was playing a practice round Tuesday and had to basically pull out. So then just me and my caddy, we walked 27 holes with putter and wedge on back end of Tuesday and Wednesday morning. But I hadn't actually gone on the range until I warmed up Thursday morning.
Perfect.
So it was a really strange week, because I just practiced putting and chipping a lot on the golf course, and genuinely hadn't hit a shot on the range. So my Tuesday practice, I'd gone to the physios and gone straight to first tee, kind of seeing what I could do. So it was a bit bizarre and a bit of a surprise, to be honest.
I was expecting and kind of hearing about your year, because we haven't had a chance to have a proper chat and catch up since you've played really, really well. And I was halfway expecting to hear some technical change, something that you made a shift in, because I'm looking at a distance change. And obviously this is a pretty hot topic in professional golf right now, the advantage that being longer. You've always been long. Your first 3 years, you averaged like exactly 303 yards. And then last year it has a 10-yard increase. It's 313. And so I was expecting to see something that you would attribute that distance gain to. I want to know what it is. Is that something was there any point, it doesn't sound like it, but was there any point where you consciously said, okay, we're all hitting it farther, I'm going to do something to pursue more speed, more distance? Or is that just the byproduct of something physically getting bigger and stronger, or maybe even equipment?
I think what I've done around my driving this year is I've tried to develop a couple of different shots, again, and that's come from being on the golf course. So in the past, I had a swing and I aimed at something and swung, and I would look up and hope it would go there. So I know that sounds a bit simple, but it's not a mile off what I was doing. I might factor wind, that kind of stuff, but it was very much like do this and kind of hope it goes here a little bit. So I've kind of developed what I think is 4 different shots now from the tee with my driver. So it's a bullet, a left to right hold, a left to right fall, and then a shot called the boomer, which is me and my caddy have a bit of a laugh at, but that doesn't come out very much. But and I think what I've been able to do quite well with those shots is where we've had wind or difficult conditions. I think I've become comfortable hitting a shot, and then I might be able to use the wind, use the ground better with that shot. And then also on other days where I feel like one of those shots isn't working, but one of them's working well, I'll just stick with that. And I think if I was going to kind of look at that distance and say, I've put on 10 yards, I'd say it's probably been around feeling like I can hit driver more and just being more confident with it. Because I think it's pretty easy for 2 or 3 swings to kind of, if you're not committed to a target, or certainly not committed to a shot, it's a pretty easy thing to just flail at it a little bit, fluff it out there, isn't it? Yeah. So, and I think certainly off the tee, I feel like I'm as committed as anyone. It's something I've kind of embraced as a strength. So I think let's look for opportunities to get my driver out, rather than kind of just I don't know how to say it. So too, like effectively just wait for it to go wrong. I'm thinking, no, let's use this. Let's create opportunities with what I think is my strength.
Yeah, Laurie, as you've risen up the world ranks, you've got to feel like that you're right on the cusp of taking yet another step forward in your career. I would imagine, at least, be it more WGCs and majors, and hopefully more time in America. At least we'd love to see you over here more in America for sure. And I know that first win must be on your list as well. So how are you approaching that process of leveling up again? And maybe a more general way to ask the same sort of question is, what's that mission map look like for you over the next 12 months? Like, as you look out and say, clearly I want to play well in events, but how is that going to happen to even greater level?
That's a good question. I would love to play more WCs, majors. Love that opportunity. I think unless you're playing in that kind of field on the kind of golf course we played last week, the great thing about those opportunities are how exposing they are. You'll see the best players in the world on some of the toughest courses. But to give you an honest answer, there's a couple of clear areas in my game that need to improve. Chipping is, I kind of feel like I'm just putting together a way that I think I can try and improve it week on week without completely tearing up what I do. And I think just generally around the greens, I think there's some gains for me there. But I don't know. You guys would be better to answer this question than me. I think sometimes you can look to improve something and put a lot of energy into it and a lot of time, and you will improve it. But I wonder if again this comes back to kind of a more wider element of playing golf. If you'd actually improve at golf.
Sure.
So, because I think there's so much to it, and in terms of for me, I think as I stand here, 97 or 8 in the world, if I was to get up to the top 50, I don't think my game would have to fundamentally change. I just have to get better at my game, which I think is always going to be based around hitting it well off the tee. And then it's kind of the non-negotiables, isn't it? That everyone has to do well to compete on the week. It's short putting, not making too many mental errors. Kind of if you have something that you can base your game on and do the non-negotiables well, then I think you have a chance, don't you? And I think my game, it's going to be really interesting to play a few more of these events and really see. But I'm pretty confident that I have a game that can get me close to that level. But it's really up to me to get better at doing what I do, rather than necessarily picking 3 or 4 things so I don't do that well. Because I suspect I could improve a lot of those things, maybe from a technical standpoint or performance standpoint. But I wonder actually if you then said how much of an effect did that really have in real terms on your game. It would be interesting. So it's something I'm trying to think carefully about, really.
Mm-hmm. How does that realization, and I think that's a wise place to be coming from, but how does that affect how you would look at how the reflection process and what that looks like, how you're looking at analytics? Because you're right. I mean, if you get into the micro and the week to week changes in performance, you can probably get bogged down in areas that aren't going to end up moving the needle in the end. So does that mean that stats go away and you're not looking at those at all? Or how are you identifying those areas? And I want to know both from a skills perspective, but also from just how are you reflecting week to week on what you mentioned there about mental errors? How's my psychology? How's my mental performance week to week? Are there hard and fast, tangible ways that you've found to maybe have a formal reflection, maybe on a week to week or longer periods of time?
So stats, I use them probably like everyone, and I tried to look at those with a decent sample size, perhaps 5 or 6 tournaments. I think then you could maybe start seeing a story. It's difficult 1 or 2 events to really pick something out, especially if the event hasn't gone well. So for me, to answer your question about kind of reflecting in a psychological aspect would be, I no longer carry a yardage book. I carry a book where I basically on every shot I'll mark an intent that I had for that shot, and I get a tick if I was able to do it. So that, if I get to the end of the day and I've got kind of 25 and above ticks, it's just, I'm letting you into the inner sanctum here.
Yeah,
that's my process. Yeah, that's it. I want, my sort of belief is that your body most of the time is going to organize itself around what you're trying to do. So give it a clear and simple task as much as you can. Hope that your mechanics give yourself, a higher mechanical chance of hitting that and doing that. And that's where you need the help. But it's down to me as the player, as the athlete, to say, this is what I'm trying to do, and being really clear. And I think it's amazing how easily such a simple thing you can get away from that. It's okay to say, that's the fairway's there. It's harder to say the type of shot you're going to hit, how the ball's going to run, how you're going to use the wind, what specifically is your target, all those sort of things. I think that gives your body a much clearer objective. And sort of my belief is the more you do that, the better you'll be ultimately. So that's, in terms of my review process, that's something I look at every day. At the end of the day, I'll finish with my black book where I've written my intent for every shot and whether I was able to effectively match my intent and whether I'd hit the ball down the channel when I'm aiming at a green. And that's my review process there, really. It's more important than stats for me at this stage.
So there's clearly been a shift in from being too technical, being on the range too much, to now being on the golf course a lot and being more in performance mode. So now I'm curious, I'm not sure when you play again, but you had a poor week putting. There has to be that default reaction that's in your DNA from years and years of reacting this way. It's like, okay, I need to go to the putting green. I need to go get some form work done. Or even let's say that you do have a week where the ball striking, you have your 4 weapons that you discussed, and not enough of those weapons are working, and you feel like there needs to be a mechanical or a technical solution to that. So I'd love to hear how you plan, or how you have over the last period here. How do you balance that to know that, all right, I'm going to have some technical work here, but I know that if I get too far down this road, that's where I've gone wrong before. So what is the plan moving forward to make sure that you find that balance?
Good question.
You did mention it earlier, though. You spoke about accountability. You spoke to your caddy, kind of reminding you or dragging your butt off the range, right? I mean, there's got to be some responsibility that exists outside of you that you delegate to your team, no?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I think if you don't use the people around you, then, that's part of being, I think, good and improving, because you need to take feedback on, use it correctly, all that kind of stuff. Having seen what happened with my putting last week, I'd probably asked myself 2 or 3 questions about it. Well, I have asked myself 2 or 3 questions about it. I did after Friday. I said, basically, how am I fucking this up so much? I'm sorry. How am I getting this so wrong?
It's all right.
And for me, there was like clearly a big speed issue. Because I was like, I don't feel I'm struggling with start lines and that kind of stuff, but my speed's way out here. And then I have a lot of drills that I can do that help me with speed. Plus, you can go out the next day and focus more on speed. So I know that sounds stupid, but again, I think having that as a focus, I'm gonna have great speed today. I'm setting as I perceive it, I'm setting my body a task, and then I think I have a better chance. Now, yesterday my putting, I gained a shot, so I proved to myself I can putt on these greens.
Yeah.
But there's definite room for improvement in my putting, especially there's a mid-range, like kind of 8 to 15 feet, where my perception and the stats tell me I don't hole enough. But if that's consistently showing up, for me, that's a great time to go and get some input, get someone who really knows what they're doing to have a look, give you some direction. Because I think then, as a player, I'm going armed with something I need. Versus if we take it back before, I'd turn up and say, "Fix me, help me," but I'm not. I don't know how a coach can help me in that scenario. I'm not giving them direction, which is the very thing I need. So that's. I think again, it comes down to the review process. Having those people around on your side, probably looking in and seeing where are these patterns emerging, but then also me as the player being a bit more accountable to what I'm asking for. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And as I hear you have that answer and really listening to you the entire time here, one of the cool things when we have these conversations and, especially with a veteran, with someone who's played for a long time and has had success a long time, there's such an assurance about their formula. Like, this is what I do. And they communicate it very clearly. And there's a lot of conviction behind, I figured this out over time. I failed enough times to now I know that this is what I do. And that's what you sound like right now, which for us is just exciting, man. Like I may be revealing too much about myself and my own character, but I don't know that there's been another former client of ALTUS that gets like 100%. I am cheering all in for this dude. And it's just been fun, man. It's been fun to watch you play well. We're happy for you. I don't know when you're playing again, but we're going to be cheering our asses off for you again, man. And I wish you continued success. And I'm hoping to see you, like we said, over here a little bit more often. But thanks for spending a little bit of time and answering the questions that we had as coaches is what's changed with Laurie. And it sounds like there's been a lot of good things that you figured out. And I know that will lead to continued success, man.
That's really kind. Thank you. Cheers, guys. I really enjoyed talking. So thank you.
Yeah.
We'll do it over a beer soon, or a glass of wine, hopefully over here soon. Okay, buddy?
Awesome.
Look forward to next time, Laurie. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Gav. Cheers, Corey. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.